What happens after the Ibogaine journey is everything. The experience may interrupt your pain, but the integration is what's going to turn that interruption into a whole new direction for you, for your family, your wife and kids. My kids' grades increased when I got back and started doing homework with them all the time. I still do. My wife quit wanting to divorce me and wants to hang out with me and let me massage her feet and neck and shoulders. And I don't want anything in return. You know what I mean? She starts laughing right now, liar! But she knows. She knows. I'm singing sweet poems to her.
You're writing poetry. Oh, that's awesome, dude.
And you know, what else helps? What else helps is just telling your story. You know what I mean? I can't tell you how many times I've gone to my local grocery store for $500 in groceries because I had so many kids. We got 4 girls and a boy.
Amen.
The price of the basket of groceries was me just talking shit about the economy right now. It's all gravy. But
Hey folks, it's Bruce Parkman here with another edition of Broken Brains with your host, Bruce Parkman, the official podcast of the Mac Parkman Foundation, where we look at the issue of repetitive brain trauma, from repetitive ed impacts and from contact sports that affect our athletes, and repetitive blast exposure for our military veterans, and what these conditions are doing to the brains, mental health, and well-being of our veterans, athletes, and our kids. Why is this important? Well, because the connection between concussive trauma and explosive trauma and mental health is not taught in any nursing, psychological, or medical course. So that means as we go forward, we have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Americans suffering from misdiagnosed and mistreated mental illness, which makes you the front line of defense for this. And that's why we bring on amazing guests so we can educate you to make better decisions about those that you love and those that you know are struggling. On the podcast today, another amazing guest. And of course, he's amazing. He's from 7 Special Forces Group. Mr. Master Sergeant, retired Scott Roessler is a retired U.S. Army Ranger and Green Beret with 11 back-to-back combat deployments under his belt. After more than a decade running missions at the tip of the spear, he came home carrying the kinds of wounds that the standard playbook for mental health just doesn't fix. Today, he's one of the most outspoken voices in the veterans community on the issues of hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and he shares his story to help operators and their families understand that there are treatment options that the system isn't talking about. Master Sergeant Roessler, Scott, is also one of the original patients that was studied under the Ibogaine, we'll just say project. Stanford, that was run by Stanford, that literally shook the medical world with the results of what that substance did. And we're going to talk about that. Scott, welcome to the show, boss, man. Real happy to have you on here, buddy.
Hey, Bruce, I appreciate your invitation. It's been great getting to know you guys and watching your show from over here in my neck of the woods. I'm up here in Northwest Florida. And like you had mentioned, my name is Scott Michael Roessler. I'm a retired U.S. Army Special Operations Senior Leader. I wrote a book recently that's about to get out for everyone to take a peek at. It's The Operator's Guide to the Universe. My wife came up with the title.
I love it.
And it nails what the book's got inside of it. And you know, I'll highlight that toward the end of our discussion. But that led to being a really eye-opening experience, the study that you mentioned earlier, and which pushed me into advocating for those ethical healing options that veterans deserve, first responders deserve, versus getting, an endless supply of prescription pills.
So let's talk about your story. How did it get started? So how'd you end up in the Army in the first place, man? And did you go right into the Rangers, or did you start out like a lot of us do in the infantry or wherever the hell we were when we joined?
No, I had my mind set on Ranger Battalion. So I had a contract, 11 X-ray, guaranteeing me a shot at Ranger Battalion, but I had to get through everything. So basic training, AIT, Airborne School, Ranger Indoctrination Program. I had a pipeline set, but if I didn't pass certain things along the way, I was done, and I would go to the 101st, electric strawberry out in Hawaii, maybe Korea, who knows? They send you to the needs of the Army.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You better
luck
pass.
kept my fingers crossed and just kept my mouth shut and did what I was told and made it through RIP. So I did 4 years in 2nd Ranger Battalion, 94 to 98, got out, was going to school in Seattle. 9/11 eventually comes around. I had joined the Guard for the remainder of my MSO, which was the time I owed back after my first 4-year enlistment. That time ended August of 2001, and the next month's when 9/11 started. So I waited about 5 months and saw how things were developing and got back on the phone, called up one of my mentors, Gunny Barreras, Command Sergeant Major Gunny Barreras, God rest his soul. And he picked the phone up, called me back about 30 minutes later, and I had orders back to Ranger Battalion. I just had to go back through rope, and he pushed me to 1st Battalion because they were getting ready to leave soon. So he squared me away. I made it back in time just for OIF 2, and I finished all those. I did 5 combat rotations with 1st Bat, left there in 07, finished the Q course May of 08, went to 7th Group, spent 4 years in the SIF, and then got promoted, was a team sergeant for, 3.5 years. Knocked out 6 more combat rotations with 7th Group and a whole bunch of trips down south, doing some counter-narcotic stuff, and retired in October of 2018. And I ended up spending about 4.5 months in the Tampa VA while I was on active duty. My last 1.5 years or so, I was pulled out of the deployment roster, and they were helping me try to get better at adjusting to civilian life. So while I was in the Tampa VA, they diagnosed me with 37 different things, TBI being one of them, moderate TBI, PTSD, chronic PTSD with depressive disorder. I was loud. I was very good at my job, very good at my job, but I was a train wreck back in the States. I couldn't stop drinking. I couldn't stop chasing the deployments. I felt great when I was deployed. I slept good, and I focused on my missions, and I had great success. And then I would come home and just turn into a big pile of drunk shit. And it took me some intestinal fortitude to admit that shit. I couldn't admit it back in the day.
Never.
But
No.
now I can sit in the mirror and know that I ain't perfect. I got a lot of things to work on. And Ibogaine's one of those things, one of those modalities that helped open up doors inside my brain and my heart to accept that fact and then move past it and heal. And I can't wait to share some of the integration techniques that really make your journey stick, because it's not what you go see or hear or partake in during your journey. It's what you do after the fact, because you gotta change your friend networks. You gotta push back on the alcohol consumption. I don't know, maybe instead of going to the beach and hanging out with your drunk Ranger buddies, you could stay home and work on a fence and help your kids do some math, and tell your wife you love her, and massage her feet so that the bed's warmer at night. You know what I mean?
Those foot massages get you a lot of brownie points here, huh? I'm here to tell you, man.
Chocolate chip cookies are my favorite.
So let's go back a little bit, because, not only did you have back-to-back employments, but you were in a SIF, okay? I was in the SIF, C-37 back in Fort
days.
Davis back in a long time ago. I had the RSTs though, so I was qualified support tech, but we didn't do what the assault teams did. So talk about what an assault team in a SIF does from an explosive perspective, and how many charges do you guys eat? I ate it in the course. I had the most fit team and sexiest team down here because we had beautiful hair and mustaches. But,
yeah.
But the assault teams, man, talk about the amount of explosive exposure that you guys have in just doing that job for 4 years.
Well, leading up to becoming a Green Beret, I was a master breacher in 1st Ranger Battalion. So
let's just add to it.
I was really good at building charges. And back in the day, P for plenty was a fail safe. You didn't want to have a failed breach. We used to get taught that if you hid behind a corner, you're going to be okay. The overpressure magically can't go around a corner, but it can. And I figured that out when I was in the prep program. that the overpressure does a lot of damage to your internal organs. And, if you didn't have breacher's tape on your goggles, you weren't close enough to the charge. That's how we used to roll. So if you were the breacher, 3-man or whatever your position was on the stack, you'd slide up there, place your charge, sneak back into the stack. Sometimes you use a delay, sometimes it's an instant, but usually on those door charges with the primary entry team, you got a 3 to 4 second delay. You pop it, drop it, get your weapon up and ready to rock, and then as soon as you eat that charge, you're in the fatal funnel and you're clearing your corners and you're declaring target secure. You do it every night, multiple times a night. You don't think about the damage that's going down. You don't think about the overpressure within your inches from these rotor blades and these choppers. God bless all my Night Stalker Ranger buddies out there for getting us in and out. But the concussive everything, the big guns, the heavy weapons, the aircraft that we use, the platforms that we go in there with, you're eating so much overpressure. I don't even know where to begin, but with just talking about explosives, you can do all the magic. You can work your minimum safe distance. You can have everything dialed into a perfect formula, but you still got to deal with the overpressure. And unless you're using blast shields and you're far enough away, which doesn't make any sense on a combat mission that you're conducting a raid, you don't have all that time. You've got to get in that structure as quickly and safely as possible. And that fatal funnel is where everyone's shooting that's inside that house until you get in there and start creating some white space for your guys. I can't count how many times I've been blown up. I can't count how many times I've smashed my skull on the tarmac on an airborne operation. I've woken up in the ER twice for those types of, training to go to war events. In combat, been shot. I've had a lot of close calls. And over there, the brain continues to function at a high level. At least I thought it did. Back home, things were starting to slow down. My cognitive skills were starting to decrease. I was losing some of my alphabet, so to speak, because of the hearing. I learned through a study that I was doing before I retired out there in Navarre that your hearing, your brain, your overpressure damage to the brain, like CTE, similar, it creates a protein that's not supposed to be in your brain, which ends up leading to, dementia, Alzheimer's, things like that. Since Ibogaine, my cognitive skills have only gotten better. My communication has increased. My vocabulary has increased. My ability to think and spit out information is pretty quick, back to where I thought it was before I started noticing the slowing down of everything. So I'm willing to bet Ibogaine's done some magic, not only for Governor Rick Perry and his dementia, but a lot of operators out there that have been down there to go knock it out are seeing immediate improvements within months. Guys go back to school. I know 2 buddies of mine that you would think were strong rangers, not smart rangers. They knocked out Ibogaine, and both these guys, I'm not going to say their names, both of them went back to college for big degrees, like engineering degrees, computer science majors, things that take brain power to be good at, to pass at a nice Division I college somewhere here in America. Couldn't believe it. And they couldn't believe it. Their families can't believe it.
They couldn't believe it. I went through that Ibogaine walk about 6 months ago, and to your point, there's enormous value there. But so as you were progressing through your career, when did you start noticing that you were slipping? When did you start becoming concerned? And did you have any idea that it was related to, all the close calls and blasts that you were, that was your job, man? I mean, you're a good ranger, you're a good Green Beret, you do what you're told, and you do it the best you can. All right. So about when did you notice you slipping, and did you just try to hide it or what?
I've actually, it's a great question. I'm thinking it was right around 2015-ish. I got back from my last deployment in the end of 2014, and that's when everything slowed down. My command was like, "Hey, dude, you've done enough deployments. You got less than 2 years. It's time to start settling things down. We're going to help you out. Have you ever heard of this thing called PrEP? I'm like, no, I don't know what that is. What is it? And I'm standing in the boss's office with my surgeon and my sergeant major. You probably know all of them, but
Not anymore,
Mr.
man.
Fitch,
Okay.
Mr. Ron Fitch, and Mr. Mark Tebow, and Trip Johnson was my surgeon. They're all three doing great things, and Mark actually did the medicine too, and Trip, and I don't know if Ron has or not, but regardless, I still communicate with all of them, and I still look up to them for guidance and good recommendations and whatnot. I think that my brain started to notice. I think they noticed me having slipped before I noticed myself slipping, and that's after my 11th trip. So 2015, when they started sending me off to go get Still-Ganglion blocks at Walter Reed, when they sent me to go do the PrEP program for about 4 months, then next thing you know, I get a call, Green Beret Foundation kicked down $5,000 to put me through some HBOT. That's when I realized I have problems and everyone notices it except for me, and I need to start getting better.
You know, it's funny, at least in my military career, every time I was getting ready to step on it or I stepped on it, right? I mean, come on, I made sergeant major with 4 Article 15s and a DUI. But during those times, somebody saw something in me, right? And they said, "You know what? You got something, and we're gonna take care of this. We're gonna make you buff halls or whatever, dig foxholes, whatever it was back there. We're gonna get you. You got promise." And I think what you went through, Scott, was those men seeing that in you. That hey, not only have you done your job, but you're a great human, and we're gonna do what we can to take care of you. And by sending you to prep and all that, and so talk about, I mean, it's 9 stellate ganglion blocks, bro. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a lot of a lot
It
of
was
hits
giving
there.
me some help, but it wouldn't last forever. And
Yeah.
I did 5 of them before I got out of active duty. And then I quit doing them for a while. And then 2 years ago, year and a half ago, I went out to Kansas City to hang out with a buddy of mine, an old Ranger buddy who had started a foundation he had about a 48, or he's got about a 40-acre lot. He's building um, he's got a farm essentially, but he's going to host ceremonial events there.
Nice.
and help firefighters and first responders out there in his neck of the woods in Kansas City. But my wife and I flew out there to hang out with him. He's partnered up, his life partner, Miss Vicky. She's a 20 or 30-year anesthesiologist, and she administers, I guess it's called stem cells. Is that what it's called, honey? Stem cells, yeah. So we got hooked up and did a couple days of NAD and some other antioxidant stuff, IV fed, and then we started getting hooked up with stem cells. I got injected in both knees, both shoulders. My C2 through 6 is all compressed from jumping and getting blown up and stuff. She put some shots in there. She did my wife's hips. She had 2 babies without any epidural, so her hips were bothering her. They don't bother her anymore. My neck, it's tightened up a little bit, but back in the day, I had to do this. I had to turn with my shoulder,
Yeah.
And thanks to those stem cells, I can do this now.
Dang, man. Look at you.
So
If you can, talk to our audience about stellate ganglion blocks. I run into so many people. I had them done after my mental breakdown, a couple 4 years ago. So a lot of people don't even know what they are, and I continuously run into first responders like, "What are these things?" So could you give a quick download on these so
sure.
folks can understand what they're all about?
Yeah, no problem, Bruce. The Still-Ganglion block has been around a long time. It goes in the pain management world. It goes by SGB, Still-Ganglion block. Excuse me. We all have 3 or 4 nerve bundles down each side of our necks, behind the jugulars, that control a whole host of stuff. And back in 2012, I think 13, something like that. I could be wrong. Don't quote me, but the USASOC surgeon and a guy by the name of Mulvaney, Doc Mulvaney. He was a Navy SEAL doc. They teamed up and did a study on 80, 85 operators with lots of deployments and stuff. A heavy deployment history. We were all dealing with the same shit: insomnia, PTSD, so on and so forth. And I flew out to Walter Reed with my surgeon, linked up with Doc, and got the shot. You lay down, they stick they do a local block with some lidocaine, wait about 5 or 10 minutes. You're not asleep or anything. I'm actually just laying there looking at the ultrasound TV because they use that to guide your needle. So they go past your jugular, and then they get close to this. It looks like a rectangular shaped kind of bundle of stuff. That's the nerve bundle. And then they back the needle up just a little bit so they can get identification on it, and they shove it in there and dump some lidocaine mixture into it. And within seconds, you feel that monkey off your back. And all the static is gone. For me, the first one lasted about 3 to 4 months. And after that, I did 4 more at the Eglin Pain Management Clinic. Once they got the hominis dominus from Army Soft that they could inject us with the Still-Ganglion block down there, we didn't have to send guys to Walter Reed anymore after that. But I'm telling you, it did help a lot of guys reset. And each time I would get one, it would give me a little bit of time to reflect on who I was before the last shot. Like, dude, you're still out of control. You need to calm down and quit drinking. And I would have a little bit of self-reflection, and I would adjust my battle rhythm a little bit, tailor back on the drinking. The hardest part for me back then was just letting my buddies know I'm not going out. I didn't want to say no. I didn't want to tell them no and hang up. I was like, okay, I'll be there later.
Yeah.
Drag my lifeless ass out and go out and drink. But the Still-Ganglion block gives you a window of time to kind of adjust your battle rhythm, your negative life choices, but it doesn't last forever. And then eventually you start feeling the anxiety and the depression and your mental issues kicking back in, and you start going back to your own ways of dealing with it. The whole time I'm trying to kick all these medications that I was getting prescribed. My shrink was helping me wean off of everything, but they had me on gabapentin. They had me on some anti-blood pressure medication because one of the pills made my blood pressure go up. I was on Zoloft. Yeah, Zoloft was dumping on my serotonin. I felt like a zombie. Like, I wasn't getting pissed off as much per se, but I also wasn't fully there either. And I would just brush everything off. I can't brush everything off when I have a bunch of kids and a wife and responsibilities and a job and so on and so forth. So I didn't like the way I was feeling, and I was trying to get myself off of all that stuff.
How many medications? How many medications were you on at the top?
If I can remember off the top of my head, it was 6 or 7 different medications. And now I'm on testosterone therapy through HRT with Warrior Health Foundation ever since 2022. That's who's been keeping me at peak performing levels. And I'm prescribed testosterone. I'm prescribed. I still take Adderall, but not nearly as much as I used to. I'm trying to wean myself off of that. I think I'm almost there.
I got to try that. I keep hearing about that stuff, man. They say this nicotine stuff is supposed to go too, but I got to try it.
I quit dipping as soon as I woke up from Ibogaine. I haven't touched it since, and I was dipping Copenhagen my whole life.
Let's talk about that. So Ibogaine is you don't just find Ibogaine, right? I mean, so how did you? How
you
did
don't
you
trip
even
and
hear
fall
about
at the rave and land on some Ibogaine.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you know what? I want to get better. I'm just going to go to Ibogaine. So how did you and Ibogaine connect? What was the the circumstance?
Great question. So I'm sitting in my kitchen, and a good friend of mine, Mike Cassidy, who's a sniper in Ranger Battalion, and we deployed a bunch together. He had gotten out, started a business, and was on the board of SOC-F, Special Operations Care Fund. And they had been sending guys in onesie twosies to go do Ibogaine under the radar, not under the radar, but just nobody knew much about it. But there were guys that were coming back from experiencing their Ibogaine journey and realizing like, hey man, I don't want to drink anymore. Oh, hey, I don't need sleeping pills anymore. Oh yeah, I quit taking all my meds. I feel great. And people are like, what? So as that trickled through our echo chamber and in the soft community, guys were like, "What do you mean? What is this shit? Can I do it? Can we do it?" And SOC-F's board members were like, "Hey, we've heard great things about MERT, we've been hearing great things about HRT, and we've been hearing great things about Ambio. So let's do another study that just incorporates all three in a row. So let's interview a couple hundred dudes. We'll get however many we need." They settled on 30. We ended up with 42 guys. 200 or more were interviewed. We ended up with 42, so they had some backups in case dudes fell out. We all committed to a year and a half of taking evaluations and letting them prod and probe and giving them all the information they could get. No drinking, abstaining from everything. And it started off with a phone call from the Warrior Health Foundation, who volunteered to be the HRT provider for this, which was founded by a great Navy SEAL. And they gave me a holler. They sent me to go get a full blood panel. They called me back about 10 days later and they said, "Here's where you're at." And they started working on getting my levels where they should be. My testosterone was floating around 200-300. They got me up living at 750 to 800 consecutively. Every 3 months, I go do another blood panel and I'm right where I need to be. If things fluctuate for whatever reason, they just tone it down or increase levels that I need. I take an estrogen blocker. I take Cypionate, testosterone, and B12 injections, and everything gets delivered to my front door every 3 months. I don't have to worry about standing in line with the local practitioner and paying a bunch of different co-pays and so on and so forth. They take very good care of you. Highly recommend you go research it if you come with a soft background.
Yeah.
And sign up for it. So I got a call from them and I started getting my levels right where they needed to be. It took about 2 months. And then I got flown out to San Diego where I spent 6 weeks doing magnetic resonance therapy. And I'll tell you what, I didn't know much about it. I knew it was built for kids with autism. It was helping high autistic children start talking again. And basically it's firing electromagnetic energy through your front of your brain and getting it to talk to the back of the brain. So those severed communication channels due to the overpressure, the sympathetic membrane shutting off because you're out there killing bad guys for a living. You can't be crying about who you're killing, and you can't spend all night pondering about it. So your body shuts off your frontal lobe, so to speak. And that creates issues dealing with things and life in general. And I think it increases your operator syndrome symptoms. But 2 weeks into my MERT, 30 minutes a day, wake up, go to the clinic, sit down in a nice recliner. They move this magnet over by the front of your head and they hit start. At the top, 10 minutes before the top of the hour, you hear bing, 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 and you close your eyes. It does its zap thing for about 10 seconds. And then you can open your eyes and talk and relax for 20 seconds. And then at the bottom, 10 seconds, so at 20 seconds later, close your eyes. It does its magic. 30 minutes later, you're out of there. I did that for 2 weeks. So the second week on Friday night, I'm laying in bed at the Cannon house where they had us all living in this dilapidated dump in Del Mar. Just kidding. It was a super nice place.
Not a
on
lot
the
of
beach.
Dilapidated things in Del Mar.
There's no dilapidated nothing. Everything was gold and it floated because it was so awesome. and I remember laying there, say goodnight to the wife, watching something on my laptop, and I passed out. I woke up the next day. The sun was already up. I thought I was late for something. I sat there for a second. I'm like, holy shit, it's 9 o'clock. And I didn't wake up. You gotta be kidding me. Because every morning, every night for almost 20 years, I'd get 3-4 hours of sleep, wake up, grab my gun, go check all the stuff, go look around, check the doors, surreptitiously exit, go look at some dead space out around the house. Just being proactive, right? In my mind, back in the day, I thought I was being smart.
But yeah.
Maybe I'm crazy.
Yeah.
So that stopped, man. I literally slept almost 9 hours. I took off on a 5-mile run, turned into a 10-mile run. I couldn't believe how great I felt. And I've been sleeping 7-8 hours, plus or minus, alcohol free for over 3 years.
And that was just after MERT. Well, you're just talking about
That was
MERT.
after 2 weeks of MERT. I ended up doing 4 more weeks of that before we finished that portion of the therapy and drove down to Tijuana to Ambio.
So you got 6 weeks MERT, and then you went down there for the big
So
plunge.
2 months of HRT first,
Right?
which hasn't stopped. I've been on it ever since.
Got to be on it, man. It's a lifesaver.
2 months of that to get my levels at peak performance, you know, nothing delayed, nothing missing, all my levels perfect. And then 6 weeks magnetic resonance therapy at the Cardiff Brain Performance Center down there just outside of Del Mar. And then at the end of that, we had a couple days, day and a half, we jumped in a van and they drove us down to Ambio Life Sciences, where we spent a week preparing and executing a flood dose of Ibogaine. I was in the spirit world, all told, for like 37 hours. After the gray day, we got back together, started doing our meditation practice, yoga, a massage, and then I did 2 back-to-back hero doses of 5-MeO DMT, which flooded my body full of love. You know what I'm saying? The visions were out of this world. I don't want to go on about the mysticism side of the thing. I just want you to know the facts about the healing. The Ibogaine opened up so many doors within my self that were never opened. They had been shut down since I was a child.
Yeah, man.
I've dealt with everything that I had to deal with that I wasn't even aware of, for the most part. Things that I did not know had so much of an impact on me, my ego, the way I was creating decisions in my mind on what to do and what not to do, and so on and so forth. It completely changed that whole scope for me. Then I have this voided space that's freed up from 40 years of shit, waiting for new habits and new decisions to be set as my way forward, right? So Copenhagen, I never even thought about it ever since. I've never thought about it, wanted to do it, or even thought it would be a good idea to try it since that day. Since November 16 November 2022. And then when I got home, my phone's blowing up. Where you been? Let's go drink. So I link up with everybody on the beach. I link up with some buddies on the bars in the scene down here in Destin, Santa Rosa Beach. And I'm not drinking. Yeah, I'm not drinking. I'm sucking down some water. And they're like, dude, you gotta have a beer. Just have one beer. I'm like, fine, just one beer. And I would just sit there and barely not like, this tastes like dog shit.
It does.
And then, so I noticed I'm drinking 1 or 2 here and there. And after about 5 months, the wife's like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you drinking at all? Are you just going to throw all this shit away that you've been going through? And I said, no, you're right. I'm done. I don't even like the taste of it anymore or the smell. Nothing about it is fun.
Nah,
so I dumped it all and I haven't touched it ever since. I can still go to bars and sit there and listen to live music and hang out and have fun. But do I even care to do that? I mean, concerts, so to speak, I can deal with that. But I don't want to go see Headbangers Ball and smashing people in a mosh pit while my wife's getting hit on by every scumbag in town. Believe me, my hypervigilance is there, but it's under control. You know what I mean? I could still whip out my can of amazing Green Beret tricks and fire up an army right here in my neighborhood if I fucking had to. But I know that is not necessary. And I know that I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Before I went and did Ibogaine, it would be on my list of things I might want to go do one day. But now the Ibogaine helped me settle down. And the point of it is you've got to choose to change old habits after you do something like that. You can do a flood dose of psilocybin. I know folks who did ayahuasca and got some good healing benefits from that. And I've got a good friend of mine who did a big dose of MDMA in a controlled setting with doctors and nurses and the whole 9 yards. And he's never stopped smiling ever since. He was a PA in Ranger Battalion and a PA for me in 7th Group. And the guy was very serious for a long time because he had a lot of American blood in his hands, trying to help us, doing a great job at that. And I was like, man, it must be a lot of weight to carry all that fucking American blood. And I could relate to some level, but not fully. Fast forward years after I get out. This was last year when I found him on Instagram. He had a huge smile. And I'm like, Jesus, I got to call him. Like, dude, how you been? Hey, Scott, what's going on? I'm like, let me just tell you something. You've done some healing, I can tell. He starts laughing. So have you, buddy. What you been doing? And it's really nice to get in touch with guys like you, Bruce, and Denny behind the scenes. And I'll just say his name. Heath is an amazing human. And he's here in the Panhandle as well. All about advocating and sharing stories so the guys will lose the fear and anxiety and go try it out.
Got it.
And just paying it forward. So I hope that answers your question.
No, it's great. What was funny when I went down there for Ibogaine, I journeyed for 44 hours and they wouldn't let me do the DMT. And I just did it here in my backyard last weekend. And bro, it was opposite of what you and everybody else has experienced. It was another ass kicking that I was expecting. 2 massive heroic doses. I was going to fly with the Lord and see my son and visions. No, I went down that tube again, and whatever else I had to get rid of, I got rid of, bro. And so, and in these stories about being vulnerable, right? And I'm just listening to a great guy, right, who did his job. And when you start talking about fixing yourself and people need to understand the hardest thing you're going to do in my perspective, I've been in, 4 different combat zones. I volunteered for every one of them, for crying out loud. Not that I didn't see half the action you did at all. I didn't see any, really. All my combat stories involve 2 things: booze and women. All right. That's my combat stories. All right. But you get out of this and then you start talking about fixing and healing and the power of love. And guys, they get curious, like, what happened to you? Right. Like you'll see me at Soft Week with a club soda in my hand. Well, that used to be like a keg of beer. Right? I mean, that's just who I was. Is going to throw it up, They're like, what happened to you? I'm like, bro, my wife calls me Bruce 4.0, all this stuff. But these journeys, like the journey that you're on, Scott, it's amazing to hear these stories about guys that have said, look, the status quo is unacceptable. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better human. I'm going to go do something. And getting the guys to, and it could be any of the modalities you said, could be, I've done them all, part of it's research, right? I've done them all, right? But, do something. All right. And reach out, because so many of our bros right now just don't know how to talk about what they're going through. And they need examples like you to say, look, I am that guy. I am who Scott was back in the day. And I can become like Scott. I can become just better. I can heal. So many of our brothers and sisters out there, man, they need peace. They got to find peace. And I think that's what we are finding right now in our journey, Denny, everybody you've mentioned, as we're gone through this, this pretty hard ruck march of life. And now we're able to start finding some peace. And I think we deserve it, man. There's a lot there that needs to be said. So I think that more than answers the question about how you found it. And so the study, was it ever published? I mean, did they was that the Stanford study when they had all the pictures? Like Trevor Millar, the COO of Ambio, speaks at our summit. And he's got these pictures of, before, Ibogaine, these guys got big, like big black holes in their brain, like gaps and all that. And then the after pictures, like, they're gone, right? It's like, what happened to the black spots, right? And I think that has a lot to do with you finding vocabulary and emotional stability and all this other stuff that, that happened.
Yes. So they had been doing, I don't know, they've done upwards of 60 studies on Ibogaine over the years. And, the history behind Ibogaine, it was discovered, centuries ago by the Betwiti tribe down in the Congo. It comes from a little bush, little shrub, the tabernacle. the Tabernath Iboga shrub, and it's the root that carries the bark that they scrape off and then grind down, and not adding anything to it. It's just the bark of the root of that shrub. They used it for the same purposes that we're using it right now, to rehabilitate their warriors after they came back from warring other tribes. And they didn't have machine guns back then. They had sharp sticks, their fingers, teeth, rocks. So their battles were probably a lot harder to let go of. And their witch doctor, shaman, health doc, whatever they called them back in the day, would take them out into the hoopla, and they would do their journey and come back to dirt farming and not have any issues. That's what they used it for. And they also use it for ceremonial purposes with their young adults, teenage kids that are coming into adulthood. They would give them a lighter dose, like a microdose, and it would show them their way forward. Like, okay, you're coming into adulthood. This is what you need to be aware of. It helped them. I've read a lot of stories about before hunts, they would take a microdose because it would help their vision or help their ability to speak through nature or something like that. So there's a lot of tribal ceremonial purposes driven behind this. And I'm, highlighting that because I think it should stick. The way that I was informed about this was I got a coach call once a week, and I got a therapist call once a week during the study. And the coach was trying to get me to understand what intentions were and why I was going to go do this medicine. She was trying to get me to understand how important those intentions are, because this medicine is extremely powerful, and it's going to do what it wants to. The medicine will do. Ibogaine is going to go do what Ibogaine does, regardless if you want it to do whatever it's going to do or not. Once you eat it, you've got to be ready to receive it. And if you're trying to fight it by bearing down, and I use an example like a roller coaster. You're a young guy, you're on a roller coaster for the first or second time, and when it does all of the crazy whirls and twirls, you bear down on your stomach to try to control yourself. You try and do that on Ibogaine, you're going to purge the whole time. You're going to throw up and secrete out all your orifices the entire time.
And you will lose.
You're not going to win.
You're going to lose, dude.
No matter how cool you are, you're not going to win. So she was teaching me that aspect of it. The therapist was teaching me how to meditate because I was so Green Beret awesome. I couldn't think of anything I needed more than Copenhagen and beer. But no, you need to meditate. You got to control your breathing, and that's going to help you release your control mechanisms when the Ibogaine starts doing its magic. It's extremely powerful. You're going to hear this hum. The hum is going to increase. It's going into your brain and repairing your damaged neurotransmitters. And it's doing X, Y, and Z. That is not just nothing. That's some magical healing going through its properties that you have got to stay calm in. And it's going to release thoughts and memories, and you're going to handle your triggers and your traumatic events as needed. I mean, the spirituality behind it was just as powerful for me as handling the traumatic things that I went through as a kid and some of the military stuff that I had to go back and revisit. But as a whole, it made me feel like I was seen, I was judged, and I was forgiven. And now it's time to share this with your brothers so they'll quit killing themselves. That was the feeling I had when I woke up. And when I did when I did the 5-MeO, I literally did 2 back-to-back within minutes of within 5 or 10 minutes of each other. I was bawling my eyes out when I came back from the first one. And all I could think about was, if my buddies did this before they killed themselves, they would still be here. Amen. It's impossible to kill yourself after you do this stuff, because you realize most of the things you were concerned about were self-manufactured. You know what I'm saying? Nothing to me now is more important than my children and my wife and my my immediate family. Then it's the neighbor, the grocery clerk, the garbage guy, people that are helping. I want to help
others, helping humans. Yeah, dude.
And so the 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 healing continues as long as you keep incorporating better habits and integrating what you went through. I know guys that had to go back for another round, and talking the two individuals that I'm referring to, they didn't get a lot of prep. They were in the first batch that went down there just because they heard their buddy did it and he quit drinking all of a sudden. They didn't have any coaches calling them every week or therapists calling them every week. I think all that stuff is extremely important. I think the study, the special operations, SOCF, Stanford University, Mystic Protocol, all that means is they put magnesium drip into the 30 guys that did the study that I went through. Marcus and DJ Shipley, those guys, they went earlier, but they were under a different protocol. The study that SOCF and Stanford did with the 30 guys I went and jumped in with was the Stanford University Ibogaine Mystic Protocol TBI observational study. And so their focus was just Ibogaine with the magnesium drip. Their focus was the results that came off of that. Those results were released January of 2024. Continuing on 6 months later, they just released another batch of information from that study, and that incorporates the trifecta. It incorporates HRT, the magnetic resonance therapy, and the Ibogaine all together. And the outcomes of those 30 individuals are off the charts. I think all but one or two had complete life trajectory transformation for the better. And I'm not speaking for the group. I'm only speaking for myself and the outcomes that I received. But I can tell you from with conviction from my heart and soul, the gentlemen that I've spoken with since the study, it's been a few years, they're all doing really good. And they're very passionate about sharing how you get there and not cutting corners trying to get there. You can't just go out and get shit-faced tonight and then jump on a plane to San Diego tomorrow and expect to get all the benefits from it when you get back a week and a half later.
No,
You've really got to be prepared to look at the mirror and tell yourself you're fucked up, you've got problems, and there's people and there's medicine that's better. And we're ready to receive you, but you can't force somebody to do Ibogaine.
No,
You can't force somebody to lay down and take a bunch of psilocybin.
No.
You've got to mentally prepare for all of these things.
Yeah. No, there's no doubt about it. And that's that's the second hardest part of this. The first part is getting the guys to know that this exists, right? That it is an option. And, we still got this huge problem with admitting vulnerability, right? I mean, it's part of our ethos. I'm not when I had a mental break, and I was sucking my thumb and I got panic attacks. I can't tell nobody about this. I'm a fucking sergeant major, all this shit, right?
Right.
But but we got to get, and unfortunately, when the guys started admitting vulnerability, it's really late, right? It's sometimes it's never too late. And that's what they need to understand. So what do you, I mean, we've talked about, Ibogaine, bringing it here in Florida, right? Maybe working with Jay, getting some, state funding and stuff. Um, what, where do you feel with, your experience, and your passion, right? This needs to go. Where do you think, what are some of the starting blocks that you think need to be, um, you know, just initiated to start getting, I mean, when we mentioned ayahuasca as part of a study, we were told we had to stay with ketamine, because, it's a little bit more controlled. It's, it's an
You
FDA
can't
listed.
control tea, right?
Right.
It's a drink mix. It's difficult to control that. So I think you're probably going to see DMT be researched in a study format, which is the active, ingredient in ayahuasca. It's DMT. I think that's probably more likely. Don't quote me on it. And I'm sure all the ayahuasca fans are going to
No, I mean,
light me
dude,
up.
to your point, I've been to multiple churches and they make their stuff all differently, and depending on how much I drank, I had, there's it's hard to standardize, right? It really is. So to your point, the DMT piece makes perfect sense as part of the outcome. There's the other part is purging under ayahuasca is a part of the experience, and they want to create a non-purge pill, which the community's like, what? I mean, because you do get stuff out. I mean, it's good stuff that comes out, right?
Yeah.
And just
From what
like,
I understand, I've never done it. Ayahuasca is considered the godmother of hallucinogenics, and it cleanses your guts. So you're gonna excrete urine and shit,
that's
for
more,
lack of better doctoral word. And
it's
I'm not a
more vomit,
vomiting and
yes,
and
it's,
losing your bowels, I guess. But technically, you could do that with Ibogaine too if you're
I did.
overly hydrated and
My
fed.
whole gray day, my head was in a bucket most of my gray day, dude. I had to
I
get
was
some stuff
extremely
out.
nauseous. I didn't throw up. I came close to it in my gray day.
I made myself. I went for it because I felt it, right? It's like if it wants to come out, I'm gonna help you. And I had my fist down my throat, the whole 9 yards. But to your point, these are the lengths that we're going to become, better humans, right? And we're driven by something, which is, I think, our core nature,
Yeah.
which is serving others, right?
Identity reconstruction, Bruce,
I
was
like that. Yeah.
something that I kind of stuck with. A lot of vets and first responders know exactly who they are in the uniform. We all know who we are on missions. In a high stake environment, we all step up and automatically just go into what we're good at. We don't have to have a meeting about it. We just execute, right? Well, who are you when nobody needs you around? Who are you when no one needs you to kick it indoors and setting those charges?
We-
Conducting SSE, getting all the intel put together so we can get back out the gate and go do some more good. Who are you when all that is done? And then your practical integration steps, that means sleep, nutrition, getting outside and moving around, taking your socks and shoes off, sitting in the grass, grounding yourself.
All right, so let's
Therapy.
talk about, I want to get back to that identity reconstruction. I've never heard it put like that. I love that term. But let's talk about integrative therapy, all right? Because you're
Mhm.
talking about a lot of things that I just started doing, and I'm 60, almost 64, right? In the last 6 to 8 months, I run the beach every day here on the island I live on. I've been so blessed. I've never taken my running shoes off and walked in the water. I mean, and then I've never done red light there. I run at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. The lights coming in. Red light therapy. I'm like,
Yeah.
I didn't even know this stuff. And then when you do it, you're like, you just you settle, and so, but you mentioned integration back in, and whether it's Ibogaine, ayahuasca, or just life, right? Integration is so key. Talk about your lessons learned, because I think this is also part of
Excuse
the
me.
book
Sorry.
that you've written as well.
Yes, sir. It put a lot of detail in the book. It's about 38 chapters, and it entails. I use myself as an example, so I just lay it all out there, who I thought I was and why I was good at being a ranger and a Green Beret. Unbeknownst to me, it was probably because of my childhood trauma. I had that hero complex. I wanted to prove to somebody out there that I was worthy. I was worthy of having a dad, even though he wasn't around.
Yeah, this is like every Green Beret story that
Yeah.
I know of.
Sprinkle that in all of our ranks. And, so I had a lot of healing to do with my own shit. And when I
Amen,
realized
dude.
it, I broke it down. It's the sleep. It's changing old habits, right? You cannot expect to change as a human and become that good dad and that good husband and that friend in the neighborhood everyone looks up to, that has the answers and will help you fix your problems, versus the guy I used to be. If you didn't run with a patch on your shoulder facing toward the enemy and had some level of something to relate to, which was just war. Did you go to war? Did you deploy? Who are you with? Well, did you
Yeah.
really go to war? Did you kind of go to war?
Are you a
Yeah,
vomit?
none of that shit matters after you go through your healing and you lose the ego.
Ah,
And that's not the thing driving your decision-making processes anymore. So when you have that window of time, let's just say it's 5 months, 4 months after you do your journey, where you've dealt with all your stuff and you have this open space within, like a terabyte of old shit that you finally dealt with. That big backpack that's full of things you're going to handle one day that you just haven't gotten time to do yet. That's what gets handled. So you've got all this free time. You've got all this space. You've got a new palette, a blank wall that you can paint whatever you want on it. So let's think. Should we go open a beer and call all your homies that are dealing with the same shit you just kind of got handled? Or should we say, hey guys, why don't you just come over here and we'll drink water and talk about what I went and did? And they'll tell you to go fuck yourself and not call you back. And that's kind of how it happened for me. Because you're a Sally. Yeah. Nobody wants to hear that shit. We want to get drunk and say the same stories over and over
What do you mean I'm not going to drink anymore and dip? I'm not going to that fucking place. Hey, but let's talk about this for a little bit, because underneath this all, Scott hasn't changed. And Scott's come to the Scott like me, right? Bruce, right? Oh, they're like, dude, but you're still Pac-Man. I go, yeah, dude. I just don't drink anymore, dude. I'll still throw an F-bomb out there. I try to do it a lot less now, right? I'm trying
Same
to
here.
I get on a podcast with a great Green Beret, it pops out, right?
Right.
I'm trying to be more loving to my wife. Massages just don't mean sex all the time anymore, right?
Correct.
I actually want to touch you, honey, right? I'm just a different Bruce, and I think people need to understand that you're not gonna change.
Bruce can still call me and say, hey Scott, here's a 5W. I'll see you down there at the interstate. You know when? Roger that. And then I'll pick up the phone and call some buddies, and then we put together our little mission set and we take guidance from Bruce. Bruce is actually more clear and concise now, and we don't have to stop and get Copenhagen on the way out.
And he's not hungover. Boy, I'll tell you, if anything's changed in my life, I mean, think of it, Scott, for 30 years, like since I was 17, I was drunk as hell every weekend, having the time of my life, dude. I spent 6 years in Panama, bro, and I said seventh group.
Living the dream.
I have raged my whole life. And now it's like, I had some fun. All right, got it. But the thing is, like, I want people to understand is that when you go through these healing processes, you're not changing. You're not becoming somebody different. You're actually who you are is shining through. And what
I wrote up a piece for you, Bruce, that talks about the integration. I think this is going to nail it. I'll just read it real quick. So we're talking about post whatever journey you take, whatever treatment modality you go through, you're still going to need to do this. I think forever. I do it a lot. When I feel myself slip, it only lasts for 15 minutes because I stop and I identify it. I go to a quiet room in my house, or I'll go outside and I'll do my breathing for about 5 minutes. That's all it takes for me to recenter everything, get my priorities back in check. And I'm not dragging around an attitude all day and night like I used to.
Amen.
Okay. So with that train of thought, the experience itself is not the treatment. Medical screening matters. Safety matters. Proper providers matter. I can't speak about anybody else except Ambio Life Sciences, because that's where I went for my study, and that's who I've contacted over the years for any type of Q&A or
got my Ambio coin.
Yes. or help understanding things, right? They're always there, always available, and they stick to a very ceremonial and traditional style, which I think is extremely important with the world's most potent psychedelic that does what it does. You can also hit the trap a lot of people fall into. Some people chase the experience and never do any work, never do any integration. They think just doing the magic with the Ibogaine is the healing that you get, and it's not. They want another breakthrough instead of sitting still long enough to apply the one they already got. That is not healing. Spiritual thrill seeking dressed up like growth isn't what we're looking for.
Yep.
Another strong lane is the difference between symptom relief and real integration. Symptom relief matters, and it can save a life, like a hardcore alcoholic or heroin addicted individual. But integration asks the deeper questions. What kind of man are you becoming now that all that noise has been reduced? What are you doing with the clarity that you receive from this root or this tea or this mushroom or this lab-made MDMA or ketamine? Or, we've got a list, probably 6-ish that have sort of been accepted in different states. A good line to use: the journey may give you truth in a single night. Integration is going to prove you respect that truth in weeks, months, and the years that follow. Healing is not measured by what you felt during the ceremony. It's measured by how you are living when nobody's watching you. Are you sneaking out in the backyard to chug some whiskey because you just can't figure it out yet? No. Are you going to the garage to snort some cocaine off a hooker's ass and call that one guy that you know is always going to pick up so you can go get shit-faced while your wife's on a business trip somewhere and your kids are at their other parent's house and you just don't know how to fill your empty time with something productive? No, that's not the ticket. If people ask me what integration looked like for me personally, I tell them, I stood in the mirror and I said, I'm fucked up. I got problems and I want it fixed. And I found a way to fix it. And this is how it's going to happen. And I'm not going to take my life and ruin my kids' lives, my wife's, my family. I'm not going to send everybody down a darker hole just because I don't want to put in the work to get myself better. And I don't think anybody wants to just walk away the easy way out. So I'm not interested in hype. I'm not interested in just talking about the crazy things I saw, because they were so spiritual. It was out of control. Mm-hmm. It made me write a book. It completely changed my thought process when it comes to healing. And I'm about to wrap it up. That means lawful pathways, informed consent, clinical safety, strong integration, and extremely real accountability. You can't half-ass it. You cannot go into Ibogaine half-assed. Otherwise, it would have been that easy. They didn't prepare 30 combat-proven operators by just talking about it and sending us down there. They assigned us coaches that had been through the magic. They assigned us therapists that had been through Ibogaine, that could speak intelligently about it and make sure you understood what you were getting yourself into, so that you could do some work, so you could sit there and grab a Bible or a book on theology, whatever the Ranger Handbook, could be anything. But whatever it is that gets you to stop thinking you're the shit and start realizing you're not, and that you might need to read some stuff and get good at other things. If you're at that point, but you're just hitting these brick wall after brick wall after brick wall, get on the horn with SOC-F, Warrior, Mission Within, Hero Hearts, 343 Fund if you're a firefighter. There's so many benevolent organizations out there now. You pretty much just Google search Ibogaine grant treatment, addiction. It's going to pop up a whole host of different benevolent organizations that you may or may not qualify for, but at least pick up the phone and start calling them. At least get on your laptop and start shooting out emails, filling out the onboarding questionnaires, and get some feedback. Get some of these people to call you back, because they're going to hear your story, they're going to hear your struggle, and they're going to figure out if it's not their platform, it's going to be somebody else's platform that can help them. Well, I literally just helped a gentleman who hit me up on Instagram 2 days ago. I'm not going to say his name. He's a firefighter, and he laid it all out there in a paragraph that he's at the end of his rope. He needs help. He doesn't have money. He just wants I'm so
we're still realizing what our first responders go through, man. Veterans get
I'm still receiving benefits from the stuff. I'm so passionate about it. It brings me tears of joy that this guy hit me up, doesn't know who I am. I've realized he's a firefighter because of his Instagram and what he wrote in his paragraph. He was reaching out. It was a cry of help. So I immediately texted him back on Instagram. I'm going to forward this to Nate Morgan. He's a fire chief. He's a retired battalion commander in the National Guard. He's been to war, and he's a firefighter, and he runs a firehouse. I'm going to get in touch with him right now. So don't go anywhere. And then I reached to Nate Morgan, gave him a quick 5W. He's like, yep, send him to me. Give him my cell phone number. So I went back to this gentleman, said, call Nate Morgan. This is his personal cell phone. And he's like, thank you so much. So I said, no, I want you to call him right now. I want you to call him right now. And then I want you to fill me back in that you've called and texted, that you guys spoke. And I just waited. 45 minutes later, totally changed his tune. Thank you. You have no idea how much you've just helped me and my family. Blah, 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 blah. You know, not to lighten. I just don't want to say his name.
No, dude. No, bro. I mean,
and now that was 2 days ago, bro. Nate Morgan took him, slid him into the 343 fund onboarding apparatus, and now he's getting taken care of. Not to mention the fact, Nate said, you're not going to believe this. One of our coaches lives in that guy's fire district.
There's no coincidence, bro. No coincidence.
No, that was manifestation, brother.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, when you talk about this stuff, you know, we got a lot of good boys out there, man. They're all tough, right? They're Green Berets, they're Navy SEALs, you know, firefighters. They're badass, right? You know, and I thought I was a badass.
Twisted Steel and sex appeal.
Dude, man, yeah. Whiskey Niner, all this shit, you know. And guess what? The best award I ever got was being called dad and finding myself. Out of all the crazy stuff I've done in my life, man. And that was like the hardest earned of a war or whatever, a goal that I've ever achieved is finding myself and finding peace. And I think a lot of guys out there, they need to know, man. I said, you know, you can't be a Green Beret forever. That uniform's coming off. And I see, you know, I see it a lot. You know, guys just want to talk about the old days. Like, what are you doing now, bro? What are you doing? What are you doing in the present? Live here. People need help. They need guidance. You might need help. Admit you need help. Take this hard step because your ego's going to fight you. They say, I don't need that Ibogaine. I don't need that. I'm a Green Beret. But once you get that ego out the way, you know, it's worth it, man. And man, Scott, we covered some stuff. We're going to have you back on the show.
I love this fight. I want to close with this. What happens after the Ibogaine journey is everything. The experience may interrupt your pain, but the integration is what's going to turn that interruption into a whole new direction for you, for your family, your wife and kids. My kids' grades increased when I got back and started doing homework with them all the time. I still do. My wife quit wanting to divorce me and wants to hang out with me and let me massage her feet and neck and shoulders. and I don't want anything in return. You know what I mean? She's like laughing right now, liar, but she knows. She knows. I'm singing sweet poems to her.
You're writing poetry. Oh, that's awesome, dude.
And you know,
tell you.
what else helps? What else helps is just telling your story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've gone to my local grocery store for $500 of groceries because I had so many kids. We got 4 girls and a boy, but
Amen.
The price of the basket of groceries was me just talking shit about the economy right now. It's all gravy, but I'll be sitting there picking up stuff, throwing it in the cart, and one of my local sheriff's deputies will come by, who used to remember me swinging from all the rafters, you know, from one bar to the next. Like, Scott, how you been? Like, I'm doing good, Mr. Deputy. How are you? I'm doing well. Like, you look tired, brother. You need to take a break. God, we got all these tourists coming and going, you know. And they're like, I heard you quit drinking. I'm like, yeah. And it's always like that. And then I say, yeah. And I did something called Ibogaine. You ever heard of that? No, but I've been hearing about it. I've been hearing more and more guys talk about it. What is it? So I did a speaking engagement for my kids' school last year for Veterans Day. And when it was done, it was pouring down rain. It was still good. But 6 different folks came walking up to ask me some questions after that fact. And they were all firefighters and law enforcement. So going back to that question, we should talk about the next time we have a discussion on your show, we should talk about those who are serving in our cities and townships
Amen.
that are dealing with the shit we don't want to deal with every single day.
Every day.
And then they have to get up and go take their day off and live in the same place. It's like going to war and staying there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right, dude. And they got to take that crap home to their families every night or every morning, bro. We mess up their circadian
need
rhythm.
To have access.
Oh gosh, they are so under-recognized in terms of not only what they do for others, but the price that they pay as EMT, fire, cops right now. I mean, I'm dealing with, child porn investigators, right? That are the suicide rate is through the roof because somebody's got to find these bastards, right? And they're out there looking at the nastiest stuff. But yeah, a whole topic for another show. And it's going to be good. And you and I, we need to start talking about Ibogaine right here in Florida, man. Let's put something together
for sure.
We'll start mapping that out.
Been advocating pretty hard since December. I've got some things in the works that are gonna be good talking points for the next show. And you remember Doc Lay, surgeon?
I don't know Doc Lay, sir.
Colonel Lay, Lieutenant Colonel Doc Lay. Anyway, he retired right around the same time I did, 2018, 19, something like that. And he took over as a surgeon for all the Florida prisons.
Oh, right? Dude, talk about an Ibogaine.
Talk about who needs Ibogaine.
Talk about people we can put back to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Dude, this could go. I'll tell you, man, it's there's so much we should do and need to do. Let's get our networks working together, man. Let's get something on the map because I do want to talk about that as well. And we'll catch up.
I will. We're working on emailing everybody and their brother to get the word out there for those lobbyists and staffers to get.
And I can help.
We're pretty much putting together the whole packet and then handing it to them, and they can run off the next election about saving money and converting the savings in the opioid crisis and the bed issue into running Ibogaine trials, dude.
Let me, whatever I can do to help, Scott, I'm there, man. So, hey, as we close, let's talk about the book. Let's talk about Scott. How do people find you if they need help? If they want to hear your story, do you have a website? The name of the book, put that all out there so people can check up and get in touch with you after the show.
All right, Bruce, you're the man. I appreciate you. So the book is in the final phases of editing with Mrs. Sage Taylor Kingsley. I hope everyone looks her up. She's amazing. And she's written so much stuff. It's amazing stuff. I just read her letter to Mother Nature yesterday on subreddit. It was on a Substack.
Okay,
I'll send it to you.
All right, yeah, and I need to edit it for my other book that I wrote for my son. So keep going. Yeah, good.
She's amazing, and I'll fill you in on that on the sidebar. But my book is called "The Operator's Guide to the Universe." It's not just a war memoir. I only have a couple chapters talking about that just to validate myself, since there's been some negative Nancy stolen valor shit going on the social media platforms. But it is about what happens when a man builds his identity in pressure and combat and leadership and service, and then you got to face what's left when the mission ends and I finally come home to myself. And I wrote it because a lot of guys know how to survive chaos, but very few of us know how to reintegrate after a combat rotation or 15 combat rotations or however many you got, and whatever you had to go through when you were there. It's very personal and you don't like talking about it, but you got to get it out, and you got to listen to other operators who have been there, other soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines that have been there, that have found the healing and can speak to you. Just open up your mind and give it a shot. My book really captures the medicine journey, but it's not the whole story. The breakthroughs of what happens after are what's the most important. The Operator's Guide to the Universe is about war, identity, collapse, and healing and reconstruction. It's a playbook. It's a map. Okay. So if you're on the edge and you've taken all your prescriptions like you've been told, and nothing is finding peace, you're not filling those gaps with quality peace, start researching these different psychedelic treatment modalities that are being tested and ran through trials across the United States. We're advocating as hard as we can right now in Florida. The opportunity, that window is like this, and is going to get close to this as the months progress. We're not talking years. We have months to capitalize on this, to help
turn it in,
spread that word, to help get our folks healed up. What makes this book different is that I'm not writing about it in theory. I'm writing from a lived experience, from the SOCF, Stanford University, Mystic, Ibogaine observational study. It's a long list of things that go into the title of this. The results were released January of 2024. I spent more than 20 years in special operations and got 11 combat rotations, was running as hard as I could possibly run, wanted to be the best at my gig, very motivated, very patriotic, big believer in my leadership. The book does not romanticize any of that. It gets honest about the pressure that I had to endure, the moral injury, the alcohol, the fractured identity, my marriage collapse, and the healing and the long road of becoming a whole man again.
Becoming Scott.
My world is not shaped by combat. My world is shaped by healing and seeing my kids happy, and a wife that knows her husband's not taking off to go get shit-faced on the beach again. You know what I'm saying? So the book is for people who look composed on the outside, but are carrying all that chaos on the inside. It's for veterans and first responders and leaders and anybody who knows what it means to function under pressure while quietly falling apart in private. And it is my way of handing people a map that I wish I had when all this started for me. And Mr. Bruce and Mr. Denny, I love you guys.
Well, I love you. And I am so grateful for your journey, Scott. I cannot.
And I'm grateful for yours. I'm so glad you went and did it.
Dude. Well, I had to, man. I didn't think I needed it, but in the end, I like to walk the walk, right? If I'm going to talk about Ibogaine, I'm going to go. And in the end, it was absolutely worth it. It opened up a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't know I still had to deal with, and I dealt with it. No biggie. But
can I leave one more thing before we forget?
Absolutely, no problem.
I highly recommend everybody in Florida votes for retired Lieutenant Colonel Jay Collins, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
Let's get his family and
let's get him in
governor's
office,
mansion.
Best senator we got in the state, that's for sure. Yeah, he'd make a great governor, man. And let's get me some signs, man. I'll shove them all over the island, dude. Yeah,
I will. Send me your address.
Will do. All right, Scott. Well, thank you so much for what you've shared, man. Your devotion to our brothers and sisters and to everybody that's put on a uniform is amazing. Your journey back, powerful, epic, man. I love the outcome, man. Healing and a true heart. Can't ask for anything more in life, man. May the Lord bless you. We will absolutely be in touch, and you're coming back on the show for sure, brother.
Looking forward to it, Bruce. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
All right, folks, another amazing episode. Gosh, where does Denny find these guys? They're amazing. Just remember, free book on the website. I had to write this after my son left me. We just revised it. Okay, get it. It's for free. Download it. Read the darn thing and become educated, become informed. The largest preventable cause of mental illness in our kids today. Let's stop it. All right, we got a lot to do. Go on the Google Store. Our app, Head Smart, is there. You can download the Google Apple Store. It's the only app with RHI information, repetitive head impacts. Don't forget our summit. Hopefully we'll get Scott down there for our summit on repetitive brain trauma, the only one in the world. It's our third one this year in Tampa, September 16th and 17th. And I'm sure we'll all find each other at Soft Week. The Mac Parkman Foundation will be focused at Soft Week and its efforts to go ahead and address the issue of repetitive blast exposure in our veterans. So remember to you folks, if you like the podcast, please like it, disseminate it, help us get it out there. We want Danny to be running the largest and fastest growing podcast on the brain that we have on the internet. And remember, your children only have one brain. They only got 1 million. Man, take better care of it. And we'll see you next time on Broken Brains, the official podcast of the Mac Parkman Foundation. God bless you all, and we'll see you next time. Take care.